Hey there everyone, and welcome to The Mindful Musician. On this channel, I help you explore the independence and interdependency of musicianship. I'm Cosmin, guitarist, singer, professional educator, and martial artist from Bucharest, Romania. And today I'm here to show you what beliefs and belief systems are, how they affect our lives as human beings and musicians, and what we can do about the 10 beliefs that appear most often in our lives when we learn, play, or teach music. Also, we'll learn how to make them work for us instead of against us. So let's get started. Beliefs are generalizations about the relationships between various experiences. For example, when you say, I can't write a song, or creativity can't be developed, or I'm not a talented person. Limiting beliefs are those beliefs that reduce what is possible for us. Generative beliefs are those beliefs that can generate more value. The totality of personal beliefs support and strengthen each other, forming a belief system. Our individual belief systems influence our attention and determine how we interpret the world around us. Belief systems are the stories we tell ourselves to define our personal sense of reality. The benefit of beliefs is that they help us make quick judgments and they give us a sense of inner security and knowing. At the same time, what we believe to be true ends up determining what is possible for us. You can imagine how this is both a challenge and an opportunity. In the words of Henry Ford, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right. When you strongly believe that you cannot do something, you will act accordingly. Further on, you interpret the consequences to confirm your belief. Let me give you an example. I can't write a song. When you believe this, these might be some of your actions. Watching Netflix, when you decide to try, you end up procrastinating. When you get back to it, you will keep your focus on the song for, let's say, under 10 minutes. And in those 10 minutes, instead of lyrics, this is what might be going on through your head. I knew I couldn't do it. This is so hard. I'll never make it. I knew I had no talent. Since you can see that this does not rhyme at all, it won't make much of a song, would it? This is what we call a limiting belief because it reduces what is possible for us. Now, what if your belief is, I can learn how to write a song? What might your actions be then? You might, talk to someone who writes songs, research songwriting, maybe start small with an easy song, or then celebrate big when you wrote a song. No one said that, it had to be good. Get some feedback. Fail. Reiterate and do it again, over and over again. What you may have realized by now is that beliefs can work as self-fulfilling prophecies. Some of the strongest approaches to transform limiting beliefs are self-awareness, which is paying attention to what you say and believe about yourself or something in particular in various situations. Ask yourself or the ones you work with such questions that can reframe those limiting beliefs. Reframing is basically a way of changing the way you look at a situation, thus resulting in changing your experience of it. So, which are the 10 most encountered limiting beliefs in the music universe, and how can we deal with them? Number 1, there's no money in music. I would complete and reformulate the statement as follows. Money coming from making music is earned differently than before or differently than how I knew. By the time you reformulate this belief in this way, you are already giving yourself the chance to find out how others make money from music and how you could do it too. First of all, I think it's very important to look around and see that the situation has changed. For example, since the 1980s, when record companies invested money in artists and they just had to play really well compared to the present, when the possibilities have become almost infinite. At the same time, with the emergence of this enormous number of possibilities, the responsibility of turning them into reality is more than ever in the hands of the artist. That is what I believe actually leads to all these fears. We are afraid that what is going to happen to us depends to a very large extent on the decisions that we make. It is an aspect of life present in all its facets, and I'm sure that we would all like to know in advance everything that follows and to know that if we do X, Y will be a guarantee. Unfortunately, however, things are different, and this very uncertainty can lead to the formation of beliefs that are being debated here. Why? Because it is easier to embrace a belief that, even if limiting, unconsciously protects us from the possibility of failure. So if you tell yourself enough times that you can't make money out of music, you will sooner or later end up unconsciously forbidding yourself from really trying to do everything you can to find out how you can make money from music. And this is how this belief can become an undeniable truth for some. Here's a reframing tool. How can I make money from music? Number 2, I'm not a creative person. I don't have a talent for music. Well, yes, I'm sure you are. How am I so sure? I will answer you in a way meant to help you change your perspective. Ask yourself this: what does creativity mean? We can define creativity as a mental and social process that involves the generation of new ideas and concepts, or new associations between existing ideas or concepts. If we were to use this definition as a guide, I'm sure you'll remember at least a few situations in which you may have come up with an idea that helped you solve a problem or turn that situation into a benefit for you or the others involved. Therefore, a reformulation of this belief that could lead to change can be: I train my creativity less than it would be good for me. Wait, what? Is creativity trainable? Isn't it a supreme gift from the universe that only geniuses or something like that have? Well, luckily for you and me, yes, it can be trained, and just like the human voice or hearing, some other silly myths, it is not something finite and cannot be trained or modified as many people believe. Yes, it's true that, and I'm going to make a short reference to what talent means. There are people with a greater natural predisposition than others towards creativity when using their voice or musical ear, for instance. They are the so-called talented people. What is their great advantage? They will learn and integrate various skills or abilities faster than others. But guess what? Effort and attitude are the two aspects that bring balance to the force. The founder of GuitarMasterclass.net, hey Chris Dahl, hope you're watching this. One of the first people to trust me and give me a chance to grow and make money out of music when I was quite young and lacked experience, often said of himself, I have very little native talent, and you can easily outdo me by working harder than I am. These are the thoughts of a man who built and sustained an excellent educational environment that at one point in time included somewhere between 16,000 and 17,000 active paying members and around 120 guitarists from all over the globe as instructors, besides being an excellent teacher and guitarist himself. The idea is simple. Your talent counts for nothing if you do not work hard, constantly and consistently to develop and cultivate your gifts, and even more so if you lack the right attitude to achieve this. If you want to find more about the concepts of effort and attitude, I highly recommend you to watch my video about the 5 skills that can make you a better musician. To reframe this belief, the right question might be, how can I train and develop my creativity? Number 3, I have to learn a lot until I can write my own music. I often meet this belief in the people I work with, and I always ask them the same question, animated by the same intense curiosity. How do you know this? Who told you this? Or how is this true? Or even better, do you know 3 chords and have you heard of Green Day? Most of them do not have a clear answer, but somehow what I have concluded by discussing it with them is that the source of the statement comes from elsewhere. In fact, namely from, I'm not good enough to do that. Said either in words or just felt and unspoken due to the fact that most people are not aware of these things, it stands in the way of the self-expression of many. From what you notice, this statement has a little more than to do with one's identity. The statement refers to who you are, not to what you can do. Therefore, the people with whom this belief appears, expressed in various forms, associate the idea of writing their own music with a high level of theoretical knowledge and technical skills. Nothing could be further from the truth, my friends. Remember, music is already within you. Your goal is to figure out how to get it out. How do you do that? Well, one way is to play what sounds good. Of course, the more you know, the more options you have, and the better you can express yourself, but you don't have to think everything note by note while singing or playing. Here I will play a major third, and here I will play a minor third, and so on. When you hear a melodic line in your mind, which is nothing but a string of notes that sound coherent and repetitive, for example, or chord progression or riff, after you take them out of your mind and discover how to play them on your instrument, you can start thinking actively and analytically about what it is you're playing. Use the perspective of the music theory you know, either to better understand what you just played and to further develop it, or to transmit that information to others in a common language if you plan on teaching, for instance. So the bottom line is, sing or play what you hear in your mind and then use your knowledge, which I suggest you constantly cultivate to multiply the interesting things you hear in your mind, to develop your ideas or to pass them on to others. What will make a difference is how you train your melodic sense. So if you listen to a lot of music and remembered and hummed various melodic lines you trained most likely unconsciously, then you will know what sounds good and what doesn't. You just, can't explain why. This helps you better understand music theory because once you unconsciously associate what you knew with clear notions and rules, you'll learn to recognize and repeat what sounds good. You will know why it sounds good, and you will know later how to break the rules and sound unique. I invite you to say the following statements out loud and remember them. When I write music, I will start by writing what I hear in my mind that sounds good. I will use my musical knowledge either to further explore and develop what I have just heard in my mind, or to communicate my ideas to other people with whom I want to collaborate or whom I want to teach. Yes, at first your musical ideas may sound awkward and sometimes they will have no sense or direction. Over time, however, as you insist and stay in the process of writing music, always wondering how you can improve what you have just written, you will discover countless ways for your music to become more coherent and full of direction, melody, and good musical sense. The right reframing question may be, how do I learn to listen more carefully and express more clearly and elaborately with my instrument what is heard within my mind? Number 4, I don't have time to practice or play. This is one of my favorites. If I were to pull it closer to its hidden meaning, it would be something along the lines of, I can't yet, maybe, give something up to make more time for music. It's okay to say that if that's the way things really are for you. You are aligned with yourself and live the way you want without fooling yourself by telling yourself you don't have time. But if you really want to and you don't know how to create more time, let's talk a little about some aspects that will help you to have a clearer perspective on what time really means. My friends, time is exactly what you make of it. We all have the same 24 hours a day. Now, depending on your age and the context of your life, there are a number of internal and external factors that can contribute to or hinder your growth and evolution process, depending on how you learn to work with them. Internal: energy, motivation, and focus. I will choose to directly attack the most important component of this equation, the price you are willing or not willing to pay to have time, energy, and to be able to focus can be the following. Choose and keep only those activities that are really, really necessary and important. Sleep better and/or longer. I highly recommend this video by Dr. Huberman to aid you with getting better sleep. Spend most of your time with those people who support you, who energize you, and who in turn put time and energy in music, playing, or something else that they are really passionate about. Make a well-established schedule that you follow. Monitor your progress closely. Set long-term and short-term goals and take the necessary steps to achieve them. You might find that you have physical time, but without realizing it, you are busy with other activities because you simply do not have enough energy or strength left over to concentrate and invest in developing your playing. Of course, As you invest time in other activities than what you say you want to do, your motivation decreases because you notice that you're not evolving. It's awful and enlightening at the same time when you realize that all this is so interconnected. External, school, work, family, social activities. Depending on the point you are at in this life while you're hearing these words, you will have different reactions. If you are in the period of your life dominated by some form of schooling, you will most likely say, well, school keeps me busy all the time. If you're an adult and have a job or even kids, you may say, well, my job keeps me so busy all the time. The kids take up all my time. I agree that your main activity, depending on your age, can give you the illusion that it takes up all of your time, and if you have other responsibilities, such as raising a child, it may seem as if the situation is clear and you can bury and forget your passions. Except in the rare cases that you can make a living off of these passions. And here are some possible alternative perspectives. You may find time, but you do not have enough energy. You don't realize that you don't know how to manage your time. You need to find ways to delegate certain responsibilities to save time. You're really at the point where you need to put things off for a while. This last one is super scary for me because I'm used to living my life exactly the way I want to, and when I think that my choices could prevent me from living like this, I get anxious and scared. But let's get back to it. The purpose of this discussion is to get a realistic perspective on your life and to find out how you can make time and how to do it consistently. Sometimes, even in seemingly impossible periods, and even if you do it less often, you can still find the time to play, even if those times are super crowded with responsibilities that, besiege you like a swarm of locusts ready to feed greedily on your limited time. Remember, big things are built over time from small things done constantly. So even if you can't find the time to practice, 5 or 6 hours a day, you can make sure you have 10-15 minutes today, maybe in 3 rounds. Tomorrow you may even manage an hour, and so on. The idea is to be aware of the danger posed by the all or nothing approach. For example, if I can't practice an hour, it's no use. If the situation is not so bad, make sure that in your calendar there is time dedicated exclusively to playing or music, and that you have prepared your environment in such a way that nobody and nothing will bother you. Rule of the weekly number of hours. You have 168 hours available per week. How many hours do you sleep? How many hours do you work, go to school? Subtract them from the 168 and see what you have left. What other responsibilities do you have? How many hours do you really have left for music? Practice or write in your mind. I'll always remember the conversation I had with my Japanese swordsmanship master who told me, throughout your life, there will be times when you will be kept away from martial arts for a while. As long as you keep your mind anchored in the phenomenon, it's almost like you're practicing with your body. Those are the times when you should keep practicing in your mind like you would do it with your body. There are even studies that have shown that a basketball team which has spent time before the game imagining its game strategy and living the game in the imagination of each and every player with all their senses activated as if they were playing had results 30% better than those who only trained by following their usual routine. This is what the idea of keeping the mind anchored in the phenomenon actually refers to. To develop the idea a little bit more, it is actually about actively using the mind and the senses in our imagination as if we would play the instrument. It is, of course, valid in connection with any activity. Want to give it a try? So the bottom line is that most of the time we can make time for the things we want more or less consciously in the long run through our long-term decisions. For instance, I choose to be with a person who has a passion and understands what it means to have one. I choose to be careful and disciplined with my time, no matter what I invested in. I choose to be fully present, focused, and committed when I do anything, regardless of the amount of time I have for it at any given moment. So the right question to reframe would be, how do I make time to play or practice? Number 5, I don't need to practice to play well. If I learn theory, I will lose my feeling and creativity. Like any other human being, I have some buttons which those who support the above strongly manage to press almost instantly. Even if I get annoyed, I'm trying to laugh it out and usually say something in the lines of, it sounds to me like you wouldn't want to learn the grammar and vocabulary of your language because once you knew them, you wouldn't be able to express yourself coherently. Or if I feel a little impish. Remind me, how many albums you've released so far? Maybe the person has not tried to put together a single song in their entire life. Sometimes, at the risk of being perceived as mean, making a statement like the one before, with the right tone and body language, you are more likely to create a humorous situation that brings the person in the right state, thus more open to explore this belief. I invite you to imagine that music is a foreign language, a form of communication based on a set of rules, different from your mother tongue, with its own grammar, forms of writing, reading, and a vocabulary of its own, with new sounds and so on. Suppose you end up in a situation where you have to communicate or express yourself in that foreign language. Can you have clarity, eloquence, direction, meaning, refinement, and efficiency in your expression if you do not understand and can easily use the elements of the language in question? I honestly think you can't. I had this realization in 2008 one evening while reading a text in German at the urging of friends with whom I was having one beer too many in the kitchen of a former bandmate. To clarify things, I couldn't speak German to save my life, but my hearing helps me and I can imitate almost perfectly various accents, including the German one. I listened to myself read and realized that I can easily imitate in a very authentic way, even if I didn't understand what I was just reading. I figured out at that moment that you can create the illusion that you understand and that you can speak a foreign language or that you can play an instrument, when in fact it is not so at all. Yes, you can learn to imitate words and expressions using your hearing and maybe memorizing some of them, but that's about the highest point you can get by approaching things like this, So if that's enough for you, it's totally okay to be honest and admit that's enough. But if you want more, I think it's important to understand what you have to do to get what you want. So the right reframing question might be, what is important to learn, practice, and use to play the way I want to sound and perform? Number 6, I'm too old to learn how to play an instrument. Usually, just about anything starts with, I'm too old to, it's too late for me to start now, actually means I'm not willing to make the effort to. I understand perfectly well when a person has reached an age when they are simply not willing to invest time and effort in something. And I appreciate and respect those who are honest about this. But when you say, how I wish I could do X, but I think I'm too old for that, there's a chance for things to be different. What I mean is that you may think that you are too old to do activity X just because you have adopted this belief from those around you at some point in your life without realizing it. Parents and adults in general are aces at this. I've seen many people somehow resign because they are too old to live their desires and dreams when in fact such an activity would make them feel young, and that's really sad to see. If you really want to practice something, I can tell you with confidence that it is, and it's not too late, and that you are and you're not too old. What nonsense is this? Well, you're exactly as you think you are. You will behave in accordance to what you believe about yourself. I'm sure you've seen reports or documentaries and read articles about people who engage in all sorts of inappropriate or unusual activities for their age, like finishing marathons at 102 years old. How dare they! I'll tell you a secret. That's why they live so long and are so vigorous and alive, because they consider themselves and behave like young, strong, and lucid people. Also true, you will be too old to do anything when you will not be able to do anything at all, and this is valid in the following situation. You died, you're completely paralyzed or unconscious, or you're missing parts of the body with which you could do activity X. Here we can develop the discussion because there are a number of extraordinary people who, despite some disabilities that would bring most of us to our knees, continue or begin to practice and enjoy activities which seem impossible in their situation in very creative ways and reach amazing performances. Remember, as long as you're alive and you don't find yourself in the first two cases I mentioned before, you can practice what you want. Fun fact, my friend Spencer started teaching his mom drum lessons a few times a week when she was in her early 60s. And after a few months, she ended up playing a few songs during the live show in front of thousands of people in her boyfriend's classic rock cover band. Ain't that just freaking amazing? So the right reframing question would be, what do I want to do? How can I adapt what I want to practice to my current level and physical abilities? What do I need to do to be able to evolve from this point? All right, number 7, I don't have a musical ear. From time immemorial, we have unconsciously trained our senses to cope with the environment where we have had to survive. Of all our senses, we rely mostly on sight. Let me give you an example. How do you know that red is red, not green? It could be because since you were just a small child, your parents have shown you various objects and associated them with one color or another often enough that when you saw that color, you knew instinctively that it was red. Why would hearing work differently, I'm asking? Well, fortunately for us, it works exactly the same. It's just that we don't train it at all, especially when compared to sight. So the generative statement might be, I need to train my hearing. If you know the movie Zatoichi, the Blind Swordsman, you probably remember, or can at least guess if you're not the one guy who saw it, that the main character was obviously blind. This helped him develop his other senses, especially his hearing. The more we can focus on a particular sense, the more we can use it and accurately rely on it. I did an experiment in 2016 in which I wanted to see to what extent it is easier for me to focus on touch and hearing if I completely gave up sight. Thus, I adapted the work of Bach, Prelude, from the suite in A minor for cello to guitar. I learned it and then I tried to record it blindfolded in a single attempt. Here's how it turned out. I experienced moments in which the music flowed so naturally and beautifully that I never felt the need to look at what I was playing. Alternately, as soon as I remembered I was blindfolded, a feeling of insecurity appeared, making me hesitate and feel like I didn't know what I was actually going to do next. My conclusions? Well, when you no longer depend on sight, you can focus deeper on playing the guitar while singing, for example, if you're a singer as well, or the quality of the execution and interpretation of the part you're playing based on your hearing and tactile sense. I have met many people, especially beginners but not exclusively, who do not listen to what they're playing because their attention is so preoccupied with aspects such as, what's coming up next? Where do I have to put my hand now? Oh, I'm wrong, I made a mistake. Or, other ways of directing attention elsewhere than necessary. If you want to become super efficient while playing, your attention needs to be actively directed, meaning you have to focus it on the following things: external sound sources, recording or backing track, bandmates that you're playing alongside, your internal auditory memory, which means what you hear in your mind, your sense of touch, which means how you adjust the movements of your hands and body in relation to what you're hearing when you play, so that what you want to be heard can be heard. That's it. Nothing else. Turn your attention to anything else, and that will keep you from playing well. The most treacherous way to sabotage yourself while playing is often the inner dialogue, that is, what you say to yourself while any situation is happening. In the various traditional martial arts styles of the Philippines, known by the generic term of eskrima or arnis, there is a form of training where the partners willingly accept blows received from the opponent during the sparring sessions to accustom the mind to the pain and to actually train for continuing the fight no matter what happens. Drawing a parallel with playing an instrument, the hit from the opponent is applied when you play and you happen to miss a note, you don't know where you are, and you lose your rhythm, you don't hear marks, and so on. The solution? That's right, it's time to move on and keep playing. If you allow the inner dialogue to take over and focus on what you say consciously or not about the disaster that just happened, it's as if you let the pain of the blow in the fight bring you to your knees. From there, your opponent will most likely knock you down and you will lose the fight. Instead, you could accept what happened and move on, remembering to be careful when that part appears again next time so that you can anticipate the situation and play as you set out to do. Next, I suggest we explore two possible manifestations of hearing. Absolute pitch. Absolute pitch refers to the human ability to differentiate sounds depending on the frequency. There are people who have super developed hearing, and if the adults around them discovered that gift in childhood and helped them cultivate their hearing by teaching them to differentiate frequencies in the same way that the rest of us learn to differentiate colors, for instance, they come to recognize the musical notes and the accuracy of their reproduction from various sources with astonishing precision. I return to the color example discussed at the beginning of this idea. At this moment, you are able to recognize the color variations present from one object to another, aren't you? Well, I mean, you can easily tell the difference in the red of a tomato compared to blood, and then even to a piece of chewing gum that has been discarded, and everything in between, can't you? Well, people who have absolute pitch have the same ability only in the auditory spectrum, not just in the visual. Oh, damn it! I don't have that, and no one educated me like that as a child. Well, no worries. We are in the same boat, you and I. Does that stop me from developing my musical skills? Hell no! Instead, the next manifestation of hearing is a must, and it can be taught in a much, much easier way. There is an entire debate about the idea that absolute pitch can be educated in adults. I don't know enough about this, so I'll encourage you to look it up and tell me what you found in the comments below. Now, relative pitch. Relative hearing or relative pitch means your ability to recognize distances between notes depending on a given or known landmark, a note, a chord, an arpeggio, a scale, and so on. Now, if I play a note for you and tell you what that note is, with the help of your auditory memory and your instrument, of course, guitar, piano, voice, or whatever, you can reproduce or recognize various distances from that note to other notes, which are the actual intervals. Furthermore, a certain number of overlapping intervals form a chord. There are many types of chords, but this is the general principle of chord formation. An arpeggio, meaning a chord whose notes are played successively, one after the other, a series of notes that follow a specific formula, which is a scale or a mode, or a musical phrase, which is a series of notes that may belong to the same scale or several scales and arpeggios combined. In short, intervals are sort of like musical bricks, which should be understood, remembered, recognized, and reproduced in various contexts. What are the benefits of training your relative pitch? You will recognize what you hear in various musical contexts, and you will know what you have to play so that you can reproduce those contexts. You will be able to improvise with coherence, direction, and intention using your knowledge of theory and accumulated musical vocabulary once you recognize what you hear. You will be able to write more elaborately and consciously with expanded options that you can explore. Take a look here to watch a video on how to effectively train relative pitch, and read my free PDF file, Music as a Language, which you can download in the link you'll find in the text description below. The right question would be, how can I train and develop my hearing? Alright, let's go to number 9. My hands are too small! It may seem like a major setback, but it is still a myth which is untrue. The generative statement could be, my hands are more suitable for the XYZW approach or technique on the instrument. It is absolutely true that if you have smaller hands, it will be difficult for you to play super extended positions of arpeggios or chords. So if you realized you were telling yourself such things, please think about what you can do or develop, taking into account the shape and size of your hands. Of course, you can train the ability to extend your fingers, which I encourage you to do, but at the same time, see how you can use what you already have to play accurately, clean, rhythmic, expressive, and relaxed. There are enough guitarists whose performance can leave you speechless, even though they have small hands. Here are 3 examples of super guitarists that come to mind now. Johnny Highland, Michael Romeo, or the great Sean Lane. Do you think they clung to the size of their hands? No! They learned to play using and developing their natural abilities, including the hands with which they were endowed by Mother Nature. Now, the possible question that can reframe this belief: what are the techniques, approaches, and elements that I can use to perform and express myself best, given the shape and size of my hands? Number 10, I'm not allowed to be wrong. Think a little about who first told you this, or where you heard it most of the time. I'm sure you weren't the one to come up with it on your own, were you? Most people who have managed to achieve what they set out to do in this life, whether they are musicians, entrepreneurs, or anything else, have made a ton of mistakes, resulting in undesirable results for them, or simply discovering what is not working. In order to finally discover what works and brings them satisfaction, recognition, it increases their abilities, or anything else they wanted. Now listen and repeat after me. If I don't make mistakes, I won't evolve. Many of us, especially going through school, where it is well cemented, remain with this belief and live our whole life depending on it. As children, we give up exploring and try to use and do only what brings us high grades in school. Ultimately, school unconsciously teaches us that everything comes down to having high grades. And in adolescence, we become hesitant. And for example, we avoid talking to the girl we like because, what if she doesn't like me? Or, what if I'll say a bunch of nonsense and she'll think I'm a fool? And later, as adults, we become unable to take any risks lest we suffer something terrible, often denying ourselves access to experiences that can make our lives better and more meaningful. Most of the time, those who teach us that we must not make mistakes do so out of a desire to protect us. But by inoculating this belief, they're actually doing us more harm, because it simply cuts us off from options and from discovering what happens on our own. I think the most important thing would be for those responsible for your evolution at all times to create a safe space in which you can make enough mistakes to come to understand what is really possible and with what degree of effort, involvement, and patience. Going back to the stage where we develop the ability to walk on 2 legs, I find it very funny that most parents are patient and support us until we can walk alone, without making a fuss of how much time and failed attempts it takes us until we succeed. Moreover, they have loads of fun watching every lovely awkward gesture and support us all the way. Suddenly, once we grow up, we're expected to do either everything right from the start or to know exactly what to do. I'm sure that I'm generalizing, but what is also clear is that there are enough cases where the symptoms of this belief are fairly easy to notice. A possible symptom is the anxiety manifested in its various forms and the tendency towards perfectionism. Let's take a look at anxiety. First of all, I'm sure you've heard this term thrown around without knowing exactly what it might mean. So here's a simple definition. Anxiety is a state of worry or fear felt in varying degrees from very low to severe. We all experience anxiety in various areas of our lives or at a certain moment in time. For example, you may feel anxious on your exam day, or when you're about to go on stage, or talk to the girl or boy you secretly like. Anxiety can be an absolutely normal feeling in times like these, but there are people who live with this condition constantly, these symptoms affecting their lives in an extremely awful way. So if you find yourself experiencing what is described here on a daily basis, things like you always feel nervous, tense, anxious, you have the feeling that something bad is going to happen to you or that something dangerous is happening to you, your heartbeat is accelerating, you hyperventilate, that means you breathe very fast, gasp, you feel tired and or weak, You have difficulty concentrating, or it is difficult for you to concentrate or think about anything other than certain worries. Well, you may or may not already know this, but you may be experiencing some form of severe anxiety. Unfortunately, it is very common and it often prevents you from enjoying the activities you carry out because it's, intervening in such a way that the effort you need to make for those activities unnecessarily high. I've worked with enough people who have shown these symptoms and who are constantly struggling more than they need to in order to play. They are very tense and nervous, they interrupt themselves all the time, telling themselves that it is not good, that they were wrong again, and so on. If you recognize yourself in this description, even a little, I'm inviting you to try out some methods that will show you how to become aware of what you feel and say to yourself, come back to the now or present. It is a complex subject, and regardless of your place in life, an artist, a teacher, or a student, I strongly encourage you to read other books in which the phenomenon is described in more detail. The question, or rather the right questions to reframe this might be, what do I have to do to succeed? How can I measure my progress accurately? What's the right state that I need to play well? And now here's the bonus belief. I will never be able to learn to play this. This song is too hard for me. If I had received $1 every time I heard this phrase, I would have raised a hefty sum. Joking aside, when you're a beginner and you do not have the necessary experience to know how long it takes and what it takes for you to produce a recognizable result, it's very easy to get discouraged and have the feeling that you can't do it, that it's too hard for you, that you're not good enough to do it, and things like that. Therefore, the following verse is very appropriate in this situation. For many are called, but few are chosen. Matthew 22:14. The meaning is that many start playing an instrument, but very few remain on this path and continue to walk no matter how much effort it takes. So, you may begin to change your perspective on this matter by changing how you say things, turning I will never be able to learn to play this, or this song is too hard for me, into I can't play that yet. This song is too difficult for me now. Then ask yourself another one of those magical reframing questions. What do I need to do? For how long? With whom? Where? And how will I know I'm getting the results I want? You have all the chances to nail almost anything you intend to play if, of course, you answer the above questions and constantly do what you need to do to succeed. Sounds simple, doesn't it? In writing, it is simple, and in practice, it's a bit more difficult. Remember that it was like when someone gave you something to do in school, say a math problem, and your first thought was, oh man, this is so hard, I can't do it. Of course, you didn't put in any effort into figuring out how to do it because you expected to know how to do it right away. And the mere thought that you didn't already know how to do it made you sick. You expected it to be easy. You wanted to do it and then get rid of it so you could do what you liked. Nothing is more honest. When it comes to playing the guitar, things are a little different. You are playing because you like it, not because someone forced you to play, hopefully. So remember this every time you feel it's hard, and then go back and play again. We'll be covering all this and lots more in guided practical activities, why and how-to videos, interviews, and collaborations. So if you feel like you've learned something new in this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. I'm also curious about what sort of limiting beliefs you've encountered so far in your life and in your activities, so please write them down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.